Howdy mates, how are we doing this evening? It is Friday, March 10th, 2023, and I have finally made my return to the Stump Pass Beach State Park. And I will say, this is definitely one of my favorite state parks to always visit. One, because of course it's near the ocean, and two, it's also one of the closest state parks to my residence. So it's just nice to be out here today. So the Stump Pass Beach State Park is a great example of a state park that is on a barrier island. So a barrier island is essentially a landmass that lies between the ocean and the bay. In this case, Lemon Bay, which is behind me. You can't see it from here, but it is there. And then of course you have the mainland. So the barrier islands are like the shield to the mainland, in a sense. So that being said, for anyone who has said that a beach landscape stays the same, no, that is not true at all. It's false. That's just because, with daily currents, especially the longshore current that runs directly parallel to the beach, it is constantly transporting sand. And it's also no different with wind, too, which is also known as aeolian transport. So given that, there's constant erosion that is occurring. So honestly, if there were no dredging to occur, and in case of any of you are not familiar with that process, dredging involved bringing up sand from, say, a pass. And the sand is brought up and is then basically laid out along the coastline. Dredging is basically a way to help extend the life of a barrier island. Because if that were not the case, most likely this barrier island would be much smaller than what it is now. But my goodness, it is a gorgeous evening. And actually, for another, this is like the first time in the past couple of weeks that the red tide algal bloom is very minimal. It's actually at a much lower concentration. I mean, I will say red tide really has been the elephant in the room. I've mentioned about it a little bit, but it's just, I'll be honest with you, it's not always a subject matter that I like to cover. Unless if it's necessary, of course. It's just, I remember experiencing a little piece of it back in 2018 when I was just coming down here to visit family. It was, I didn't really know much about it back then, but I was foolish enough to actually still go for a swim, which, looking back, I don't know why I did. Anyway, at least right now, the water actually looks pretty decent. So hopefully it can stay that way for some time. Hopefully it won't be that bad this summer, but we'll have to see. Actually, just right here, we've got something that's called railroad vine. It's a classic example of a morning glory flower. And railroad vine is so called that because if you look right there towards the center of the frame, that is literally all the same plant. So it literally has the capability of just growing so much that it reminds you of a railroad. That's oh yeah, looks like we got a little willow here. Yeah. See him? See the fellow homie? Today was a rough one, especially at work. So it's just, this is a nice little alleviation, as it were. Yeah, Ready Turnstone. I believe they are a year-round resident. I'll be sure to clarify. But you definitely can see along the shoreline a little bit that red tide was here. Just because you can see some of the remains of dead fish. Like this. And it sucks. Yeah, you can see, just based on the color of the water, it has a little bit of that teal, like it should. And you can see that it has a little bit of a lower turbidity right now. But this is also proof that a beach landscape always changes. You know, like right now we're walking along a swash zone. That's where you'll commonly see the water going in and out. And that usually makes up what is known as the near shore. And typically where the waves break, that is also known as your foreshore. And that's usually where it starts to get a little shallower. And that's why waves oftentimes will break the way that they do. But yeah, it's very refreshing. So, and unfortunately for this time of year, not all of the Gulf beaches are like this. You know, like especially down in Fort Myers, it's really rough. And even some spots up north have it. So that's the thing about red tide. It always depends on the water current as well as the wind. Unfortunately right now, wind is, you know, it's directly coming to the beach, and I'm really feeling no symptoms of coughing, which is usually common with red tide. They produce airborne toxins. So it's a good sign. I'm glad to see that there's a little bit of improvement. So, alright. Take care. Hope you enjoyed this little snippet. Like I said, we'll just have to see how it plays out. You want to hope for the best. Of course, at the same time, you want to prepare for the worst, too. So, alright. Take it easy. Journey on a journey is onwards. Take care, folks. See ya.